Ever heard of a war where the enemy was a bunch of birds? No, this isn't a Hitchcock movie, but the Great Emu War of 1932. Picture Western Australia's Wheatbelt region, a tranquil haven abruptly shattered by the cacophonous arrival of 20,000 emus. Driven from their native habitats by a relentless drought, these feathered invaders found solace in the wheat-rich Campion district. The local farmers, no strangers to the occasional kangaroo or dingo, were ill-equipped to tackle this feathery onslaught. As they helplessly witnessed their precious crops being ravaged by the ravenous birds, their desperation grew. Facing potential financial ruin, they voiced a simple plea to the Australian government: save our crops, save our livelihoods. The government, in response to this call, did what any responsible authority would do when faced with an emu invasion. And so, the government, heeding the call of its citizens, did what any responsible government would do when faced with an emu invasion. They called in the military. With the Australian military involved, it was time for the emus to meet their match. Or so it seemed. The government's response was swift and decisive. They armed the soldiers with Lewis guns and 1,000 rounds of ammunition each. The mission was straightforward, or at least that's what they thought. A battle began, the likes of which the Wheatbelt had never seen before. The soldiers, fresh from their experiences in World War I, were faced with an enemy unlike any other. The emus were not just birds. They were cunning, agile, and surprisingly resilient. They scattered at the sound of gunfire, only to regroup and return undeterred. The soldiers' tactics, honed in human conflict, were proving ineffective against these feathered foes. It was a sight to behold, a testament to the unpredictability of nature, and a lesson in humility for mankind. The emus were proving to be a formidable adversary, and the soldiers were quickly learning that this war was far from a walk in the park. As the emus continued their feathery rampage, the battle lines were drawn, and what would come to be known as the Emu War had officially begun. Soldiers versus emus in a battle for the Wheatbelt, a testament to the unpredictability of nature and a lesson in humility for mankind. Now you'd think the emus would see the soldiers and leave, but no, these birds were not going down without a fight. The emus, far from being mere avian invaders, were agile, resilient, and surprisingly strategic. They could sprint at speeds of up to 31 miles per hour, their thick feathered hides withstanding multiple rounds from the soldiers' Lewis guns. When the gunfire began, the emus scattered, transforming the battlefield into a spectacle of chaos and confusion. These were not your average birds. They were astute survivors, turning the tables on their human adversaries. The soldiers, anticipating an easy victory, were left flabbergasted. The emus' survival skills were nothing short of remarkable. They resisted the military onslaught, disappearing into the wilderness only to re-emerge in another part of the district, continuing their crop destruction. It was an unexpected, feathered resistance. The more the soldiers pushed, the more the emus resisted, disappearing into the wilderness only to reappear in another part of the district, continuing their crop destruction. The emus, with their uncanny knack for survival and evasion, seemed to be getting the upper hand. The military campaign, initially estimated to last a few weeks, became an extended clash of wills. The emus, in their feathered audacity, continued their relentless decimation of the wheat fields, seemingly undeterred by the soldiers' efforts. As the war of attrition dragged on, it became abundantly clear that this was not a typical battlefield. The emus had turned the tables, transforming from invaders to defenders of their newfound feeding ground. The soldiers, despite their best efforts, were unable to subdue their avian adversaries, a testament to the unpredictability of nature. This unusual conflict served as a humbling reminder of mankind's place in the grand scheme of things. In the face of the emus' resilience, the soldiers were rendered powerless, their military might dwarfed by the sheer tenacity of these extraordinary birds. The soldiers were left scratching their heads, wondering how a bunch of birds could have outmaneuvered them, marking the end of the most unusual war in history, the Great Emu War.